When you're talking about your menstrual cycle, it's new for many of you, and so it's embarrassing. So even if you have people in your life that you trust, it's hard to get the words out to talk about those things because it's private.
I remember for me it was super embarrassing.
Yeah.
Didn't even want to say the words.
Right.
You know. Mm-hmm.
And for me it wasn't at all. But I wouldn't have wanted to just talk to anybody about it. I mean, I would talk to my mom or to my sister, but I wouldn't have just talked to anybody about it. And nor should you, probably. But so the number one question that we get is, how do I ask for what I need? And that can take on various forms. But for the purpose of our Ask Mom series, it probably takes on the most relevant form is your cycle. And so how do I get the supplies that I need? How do I ask my mom if I can use a tampon? You know, what kind of pad should I use or tampon should I, you know, that sort of thing. Those are all questions you need to ask your mom, but it's hard to get the words out.
And the other thing is some people aren't living with their moms for various truckload of different reasons. And so it may be an aunt or a dad or a grandparent. And or it may be an older person that hasn't, you know, it's been a long time since they've used the new, you know, tampons and the new pads and stuff.
The main problem in being able to communicate with someone in your family about what you need is just knowing how to get the words out or how to set up the right environment. And, you know, you come home from school and you're busy and your mom's busy or your aunt's busy or whoever it is that's taking care of you. And you're trying to look for the right time when no one else is around because you're, you know. And so I think it's just sort of taking the time to think about what you really need to ask and then finding a way to pull them aside and have some privacy or establishing in the first place even a relationship with someone that you can really talk about these things with. And you know, there are some of the things I've done when I've really needed to talk to my kids about stuff and I felt like the home was just too chaotic was going on walks. I would just take even around a couple of blocks and not even bring up big stuff the first few times we went on walks, but just go out and just enjoy them and just say, oh, tell me about what's going on in your life, or I tell them about something in mine, and we just have a few minutes together. And the great thing about a walk is that you don't look at each other when you're walking.
Right.
And so it's a lot easier to talk about things that might feel uncomfortable or embarrassing when you go on a walk, because you don't have to look them in the eye and say, I need tampons and am I allowed to? You can say, well, you know, how old were you when you started using pads and tampons, and when did you start your period? And you can have those conversations side by side, and it feels a lot more comfortable.
Right. Now when I tell my daughter, let's go on a walk, she's always like, what are we talking about?
Yeah. You can establish a relationship with someone like that too, and you could just say, I'd really like to go on a walk with you, just a short walk around the block, and let's just have some time together. And then that can be a time when you can establish something with them that allows you to talk about more important things when you need to. If you have trouble bringing up specific things about what's going on with you, you can always defer it by asking them what happened with them at your age. And so if you're thinking, when am I going to be allowed to use tampons, you could ask your mom that question. Say, tell me about when you started your period, how old were you? And, you know, will you just tell me about that? And so she'll probably have funny stories or things she wants to tell you. And then, you know, as you ask about her experiences, you can say, I was wondering when I'm going to be allowed to use them. You know, sometimes too, your parents will think that maybe you're not ready to know something yet, but you are. Because your friends are talking about it, or because, you know, it's in your world and they just don't know. And so they won't bring stuff up. So that's why it's really important you establish something with them where you can talk to them. Because I would want to know if my daughter knew something and she was keeping it inside and really wondering about it, and I wasn't sharing it with her yet, whatever it was, because I didn't think she was ready or didn't think she knew about it. So start sharing what you're comfortable with right now, so that then when it comes to times when things feel more uncomfortable, you'll feel better about sharing those things too. A relationship is something you have to work on all the time.
And your parents may not know what they're talking about in school. They might think, you know, well, when I was in 5th or 6th grade, you know, we just talked about, you know, X when it's a lot different now, and so they need to know that. And I always tell my daughter, you know, you don't want to learn it from other kids on the playground. Right. They don't have the right information. You need to ask people that are older if you have questions about things like that.
Right. It's true. It's true. And every family is so different, too, in their dynamic and what they believe and their values. And so it's important to know what your family thinks and what your parents think.
Right,
and,
right.
So whoever it is that you need to go to in order to establish that relationship, do it. And, you know, if you're a girl who's watching this video and you don't have anybody you can't imagine who this person would be that you would go to.
Right.
Start even looking at your friends' parents.
Yes.
Because I know that if one of my daughter's friends came to me and said, I don't know how to handle this, and I don't know, I know you like to talk to Hannah about stuff like this, and they came to me and they asked those questions, I would love to sit with them and say, let me help you with this.
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to do that. So if you don't have that special person in your home that you can do that with, then, you know, if you have an older sister, that might be a good idea, or if you have a friend's mom, or maybe someone at school.
A teacher that you really trust.
Yeah, sometimes there's people that are just really open at school and you can talk to them, a counselor. You know, there could be lots of people you could talk to about this. Sometimes you don't want to communicate verbally, but you can communicate in all the nonverbal ways that are open to you now. So it is perfectly...
You could throw signs.
You could.
But sometimes not all the signs
do you
to
have
throw.
Do you have a sign for... I started my period. I don't know. P. How do you do P? L-M-N-O-P. I don't know. Anyway. Clearly the signs aren't going to work for us, but maybe they work for you. But so you can email. It is perfectly okay to email your parent a question and say, I would love it if at some point when it's private, you know, for both of us, if you could bring up whatever the topic is so that we can have a private time to discuss it. And then you don't have to initiate an uncomfortable conversation. You can ask them to bring it up when they're ready, and then maybe they'll have some time to think through what they would say to you, and then it will come across as coherent and valuable.
The last thing you want to happen is like sitting around the dinner table. Oh, I got your email, Sally. Yeah, you can start using tampons. I mean, I don't know how people's parents are, but I can imagine that there's going to be somebody.
Yeah, knucklehead.
I was going to say that, but I didn't want to because I want to call somebody's mom a knucklehead. But there might be somebody that would just think that that's okay to talk about in front of everybody, and you could put in your email or your text or whatever, I'm really uncomfortable with this. I just want it to be you and me talking about this. I mean, be super clear on how you want to communicate this so that that other person knows exactly how this should be communicated with you for your personality.
Yeah.
If you wanted a discussion at the dinner table,
by all means,
open it up. Your dad might not be comfortable with it, but it's a part of life.
If for some reason your mom lives in a cave and she doesn't have email, you can text her on her phone. Totally okay too.
What if she doesn't have texting?
If she doesn't have texting or doesn't know how to text?
Calligraphy.
Teacher.
Calligraphy.
Maybe she does live in a cave, and instead you could write cave notes to her on the wall.
On the wall.
Hieroglyphics. I don't know.
Paint it on the wall.
You could.
You could easily paint a water buffalo having its period.
You could.
And then that could open up a huge conversation right there.
You can also just write a note and put it in her purse. Guaranteed she's going to find that and get that.
That's a great idea.
So if you're, 11 or 12 and you don't have access to email yet or whatever, then just write a note.
Do you know what I've heard also, and is they'll keep a journal. Mm-hmm. Like, so you can sit down with your mom, or if it's not your mom, your dad or somebody in your life, and you could have this journal that communicates back and forth, right? So you write them a note in the journal. Right. You hand it to them. When they feel like they have the time, they can write back what they want to write back. They hand it back to you, and it can just go back and forth and back and forth. And as long as it's a private thing and you know it's private and they know it's private, that's another good way to do it too.
So hopefully if you were writing them, eventually it's going to come to a point where you can actually have conversations with them. But if it doesn't, and that's the way you need to communicate, perfect. Mm-hmm. Perfect.
As long as you're opening up the communication.
Exactly.
See ya, I'm Charisse.
I'm Holly, and we hope that that information just helps you to be able to communicate better with some trusted adult and ask your questions and get what you need.